pleasing them, but also getting the best out of them for the businesses. He was able to speak to the younger generation and get a good work ethic out of them. Everyone they felt demoted.
£100,000 on cabins. I was doing.
I thought you were going to say someone else.
No. No.
Leadership, it can be just like herding cats. Ever tried that before?
Hello everyone and welcome to the Leadership Herding Cats podcast. Today I am joined by Aaron, who is one of our support ops. Hello Aaron.
Hiya.
We're going to be talking about why leadership is so important. Slightly different perspective today though. Although I like to think myself as a young whippersnapper, I'm definitely not these days. So we're going to get a younger person's perspective. Now I think younger generations get quite a lot of bad rap for their work ethic and things along those lines, and I'll give some of my opinions on that in a second. Before we jump straight in though, Aaron, tell us a little bit about yourself and about your experience. So you're a support op for us here at Vapor Clean currently.
Yeah.
What have you been doing in the past? You've come from hospitality mainly, haven't you?
Yeah, so I've worked as a support op for Vapor Clean for about a year and a half or so now, and then before that I came from hospitality, where I worked from my way from the bottom all the way to the top. Started when I came out of secondary school, went into being a waiter, and then made my way up from there. I worked in the kitchen for a bit, worked behind the bar, then I was a supervisor, then I was an assistant manager, then I was running the restaurant, and then I was ready to finish with hospitality.
Get out of hospitality.
Yeah, after about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. So, and you're 22 now, aren't you?
Yeah.
So you were in hospitality 5 or 6 years. If you would, what was that? If you come straight
I
out
would
of school,
have joined hospitality when I was 16, and then I
Yeah.
would have left hospitality at 20, about 20 years old, and
Yeah.
then joined it.
Yeah, and we were just talking before we pressed record about obviously the effect that COVID had on hospitality as well. You were one of the ones that were furloughed.
Yeah. Luckily, I was furloughed for the time when COVID was happening, and then we were all able to open up again, and then done Eat Out to Help Out, where the government done the 50% off for all your food items and everything like that. So we went from having no work for about a year and a half, to then being chucked into an entire full restaurant for the day, basically, just so the government could make some pocket money back themselves. But I get why they did it. I get why they had to do it.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of it was also about sort of getting the businesses back as well.
Yeah.
But you were given a good perspective, obviously, from being in that industry and being the one that was furloughed, to then coming back and that dread of actually, I've got to go back now. And, we work very closely with the hospitality industry. And as I was saying to yourself a minute ago, I'm speaking to people in the hospitality industry that are losing their businesses very regularly, or very close to losing their businesses, either because they can't get the staff or they're not getting enough customers through the door. So obviously the need for it back then was really important. It still is important now, but from you as one of those people in that boat, basically going back to work, were you thinking of leadership management? How were you dealt with?
I didn't know how I was going to deal with my staff when I got back.
Yeah.
So initially I had to ring all of them individually, plan a date for them to all return to work. You then had to do all of the health and safety procedures of we had the isolation periods, which we had to write out who was isolating, how long for, what contacts they could have had with other people. But then it was also getting everyone back into work and getting everyone to work off of the same page when you haven't seen one another for a year and a half.
Yeah.
People have changed. Things have happened in everyone else's lives. They want to have a chinwag and catch up with other people, but at the same time, it was trying to herd sheep.
Herd cats.
Sorry.
It was like herding cats.
It was like herding cats. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say so, because no one was really 100% work ethic towards it. And then when we all got back, it was a big shock to all of our systems, because we've been without work for a year and a half, and then we were all slapped into it straight away. So,
but then that's the hardest bit as well, isn't it? So talking about that, and the first thing that jumps into my mind is the sense that you had that gap in between. And one thing we did here, I mean, we're in the cleaning industry, obviously, the specialist side, that did pause. We furloughed the technicians for a short period of time, only because we discussed it with them, and actually we all felt it was what we wanted to do at the time.
Yeah.
To make sure it was safe. We didn't have a good enough understanding of COVID when it first hit. The contract side, however, had to continue. So we had to continue, but we weren't doing the deep cleans and stuff. We were doing maintenance cleaning to keep places open. But even though we were on a shorter period, so we probably had a slight advantage there, surely it's that breakdown in communication that potentially causes a lot of the issues. So did you not have any sort of communication or much communication at all then in between? Or
No, it's very rare, very small snippets of communication.
Yeah.
We'd have our emails with our pay slips. You might get a random email from someone really high up within the company, but it'd be a generic email that's been sent out to thousands of people.
Yeah, and I think that was a lot of the things, wasn't it? It was a case of, right, we're a big company, we need a voice. So it was a case, right, let's get the CEO to send out a message to say thanks for all your hard work and all that. Bollocks, basically. Because that's exactly what it was. And I think that's what people see it as, isn't it?
Yeah, he wouldn't know me by my name.
No.
You know, it's just a case of they've had to send it out to all of their staff members. But having that year and a half or so of not working and then going back to work, it was a bit of a relief.
Yeah.
It was a bit of a relief, but then obviously you've got the return to work blues.
Which anyone gets anyway, don't they? Everyone gets that, but I do think it comes down to the leadership. It comes down to how you're led, how it's communicated, and what it is to make sure that you're all on the same page and where you're going. I'll be honest with you, I don't think you maybe have enough of an understanding of how important that eat out to help out could have really been for those businesses themselves. But then maybe that's probably a case of it wasn't communicated well enough to you as a team, essentially, to make sure and get that across. So, but sort of going back to your experience itself then, because I hate talking about COVID. You say you started off as a waiter, you sort of slowly progressed up through the different ranks. What was the trigger for you sort of stepping up into the different roles?
I was always pushed by my old manager to have an inner promotion. There's another inner promotion. I think he could see, I think he liked me, and I reminded him a little bit of himself.
Yeah.
So when I was working with him, he was quite banterous and he had a repartee with me. However, he would still be my manager at the end of the day, but he would continually push me to have an inner promotion and just keep on pushing myself, really, until it got to the point where my next promotion was his role. And the restaurant was put into, what was it? They were having loads of work done to it, basically. They were knocking the restaurant down, they were reopening it with the same company, but a different branch.
Yeah.
So my manager was basically given the option, you can reapply, you're not guaranteed the job, or you can stay within the same branch and move today, pretty much. And all of them were living on site as well. They were all living in the flat above the restaurants.
Right.
So he had to go, and then he moved somewhere, can't remember now, but within the same branch. And then they hired this new person in. And then when the new person got hired, he was having none of it, basically. No one was able to speak above him or go above him. And he was then a different management style, which actually rubbed off in a bad way to all of the other staff.
Yeah.
However, the previous manager, he was probably too informal in ways, but he got more out of his staff because they wanted to do the work for him.
And but that's the biggest factor, isn't it? Your team needs to want to do it. You need to have, whatever the reasons behind it, you need to have that sort of desire to achieve, if you like, or work as a team, especially in that sort of scenario.
Yeah.
With, how many sort of staff was in there? What was the size of the team, do you know?
About 80.
Yeah.
About 80 or so, I had about 30 to 35 chefs, and about 40, 45, 50 maybe front of house.
Yeah. So that's a fair sized team to make sure is constantly ticking over and working together to achieve the same goals, isn't it? So
you'd have at least one or two sicknesses a day as well. Of course.
Yeah, absolutely. So, so what would What would you say in that sort of scenario then? What was sort of the biggest thing that you looked for, the biggest thing that changed when you changed managers?
Their viewpoints and their expectations were much higher than the previous manager, but that's also was with the change of the branch. But yeah, his management style was very formal, very strict, and I don't know, he almost alienated himself into being better than everyone else. I don't know how to explain it other than it just made it rubbed off wrong on everyone else.
Yeah.
No one really wanted to do them a favour. No one wanted to give him a hand. Everyone they felt demotivated, to work for them.
Yeah.
Out
of interest, was there, and relating it back to sort of the age thing, as much as I don't like to do that, but was there a bigger age gap with the two managers between yourself or the average age of your team compared to the managers?
Our team was, our team, we could have anyone from 16 to 80.
Yeah, it's typical hospitality, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, but the managers, if I was to compare the two, they're both male, both similar sort of ages.
Yeah.
One was from Poland, one was from Romania.
Right.
And there wasn't much differences in themselves. It's just their management style.
The management style, yeah, and everyone has a slightly different management style. Even with the best intentions, you can have a different management style. I just wondered again, because for me, obviously, one of my jobs is always to try and find out the reasons behind a problem, and to try and actually resolve that. So instantly, my mind goes to, I wonder why that is. How can we solve that, or whatever. So even if I'm not trying to solve a problem, it's nice to know the reasons behind it. So.
It's interesting because the manager who came in like a bull in a china shop, he was the one with the least experience.
Yeah. Yeah, but that often tends to be the case, I find, because it tends to be the people that are the least experienced that, and you'll probably know one of the managers that we've had here in the past that will have that kind of had a tendency to lean that way at times, but it tends to be the lack of experience that thinks they've just got to come in and crack the whip or slam their foot or whatever. And I'll be honest and say I'm not innocent of it. I've done it in the past. When I was in my early days of management, I've just been a case of no, do it that way or don't do it at all or whatever. And even just they call it the chimp paradox, don't they? So you just literally react. Situation happens and you react straight away. And I'm quite a passionate person, so I instantly do that anyway. I have to take many deep breaths and think about situations.
They don't always work though, do they, those deep breaths?
No, they definitely don't. No, definitely not. One of the biggest factor for me why I think leadership is so important is to give direction and to keep a business or whatever it is going in the right direction. Because essentially, it could be a football team. You have a leader, you have a captain in a football team for a reason, and that's to give them the right direction. Because, I'm not going into politics, but we were talking about politics a moment ago. But if you don't have someone in the lead of a political group, it's going to go in the wrong direction. You have to have someone somewhere to steer that ship, if you like.
Yeah.
So, how would you say sort of that's changed between your sort of management roles, including here?
I think whoever's going to be the face of leadership has to act very responsibly, and they have to be very careful in how they act and what they say. The person within the leadership has to be able to have a lot of different examples of maybe where things have happened for them in the past, where they can then relate to whoever they're leading into making the right decision. But also, leadership doesn't necessarily have to be through age. It doesn't necessarily have to be through looks, but it's more how you can adapt to the individual cleaning operative, we'll say, and to be able to mould the cleaning operative into be able to pleasing them, but also getting the best out of them for the business's reasonings. You've got to be able to adapt for every door that you go through, basically. Because I could go into a conversation with one cleaning operative and a conversation with another cleaning operative, but I have to do both of them completely differently because of how they are. So you've got to have the ability to adapt. But what's important about leadership is that it's there initially. You need to have leadership. You need someone to be able to look up to and fall back on if issues occur as well.
Which that is your direction that you're looking for, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you are looking for direction and support, basically, aren't you?
Yeah, pretty much. You want someone to be there that you can ask them a question, they'll give you an answer, but you also want them to be able to support you, and you also want them to be able to tell you off as well when you're doing wrong. If you've got a manager who can't tell their staff off, their staff can continually take the mick.
Yeah, I think, again, it's that kind of... It's just making sure that everyone's working in the same direction, even if you look at it in a slightly more positive way, the fact of just keeping people moving in the right direction, not necessarily telling them off, but you just, refocusing. That's probably the word that I'm looking for, is just to make sure you're refocusing the team or the individuals. So how have you felt about the different management styles that you've experienced then? Because what would you say, I mean, over the years you've had 5 or 6 different managers, direct managers?
Yeah, 5 or 6, I would say. I can actually remember all of them as well.
Well, I think that's a good thing. Whether or not you can remember from good reasons is probably a different subject.
I can remember all of their names and all of their reasonings.
Yeah.
My first one was Matt. I had him for 2 weeks. He was very bad. And then after that was George, and George was really informal with me, but in a good way. He knew, even though he was in, I think, his late 50s, he was able to speak to the younger generation and get good work ethic out of them.
Before we dive too deep into this week's podcast, I want to tell you a little bit about our sponsors, which is Vapor Clean Commercial Cleaning Services. Vapor Clean provides commercial contract cleaning throughout the Southwest. If you run a business with premises that need cleaning on a daily basis, then we can provide that service for you regularly, sufficiently, and consistently to the highest standard. We provide trained, professional operatives that are audited and supported the right way, making sure you have the highest standards all year round. So if you want to know more, get in touch. But for now, back to the podcast.
I've had really informal managers and then I've had really formal managers. I think the best place to be is in the middle, but it would also probably work differently with different staff members.
I think that's quite a big factor, isn't it? Is being able to read your team and kind of understand the individual, because like you were saying earlier, one person will react to one situation very different to another person. I've had sort of team leaders even that can actually get quite flustered, and you don't have to solve the issue, but they need to be able to pick up the phone and just have that fluster, and you just say to them, just take a breath, just stop, calm down a little bit, think about it. And then once they've done that, 30 seconds, they're like, right, yeah, okay, I'm going to do this, this and this and get this solved. Fine, go, do it. And that's it. But if you don't have someone that can read that situation to react with it in the right way, it gets awkward, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think one thing within management as well is taking responsibility.
Yeah.
I've had managers in the past where things have gone wrong and some managers can't hold their hands up.
Yeah.
You need to be able to take responsibility, because it just speaks volumes about the person themselves as well.
Yeah. But I think that's one of the biggest parts of being a manager or a leader. You have to do it in a way that is true to yourself. As in, quite frankly, if you're the type of person that isn't going to take responsibility for a situation, I don't think you're ever going to lead properly, because even if you're trying to fake taking responsibility for it, it's not going to work. It's never going to be true. It's never going to be accepted by the team in my eyes. Obviously, working with me, I work quite a lot with above and below the line. You need to make sure that you're above that line all the time. You're accepting what the situation is. You are, looking for a solution and taking responsibility. And I think that's really important, really. So in that mind then, and sort of coming back to this perspective of your age, now it's many, many years ago for me, but...
Many moons ago,
exactly. I know when I was your age, sort of 21, 22, I wouldn't go as far as calling it discrimination, don't get me wrong, but I would get sort of looked down on, I'd get judged very quickly for my age and stuff like that. I mean, don't get me wrong, when I was 22, I was selling £100,000 on cabins and stuff like that. I wasn't, I was doing...
I thought you were going to say someone else.
No. No, I never sold anything like that. No. So I'd walk into like a big... holiday complex, and I'd be looking to sell them 15 log cabins that were like 80 grand each or something like that, and there I was, smooth faced and all the rest of it, and just
can sell ice to an Eskimo.
Well, I can without blowing me on too much, but back then I was instantly judged for my age, so I had to get over that to start with. And that's why I'm always reluctant to do that, because I remember that, and I don't want to treat people like that. I mean, you in particular are someone that we've identified here with a lot of potential and a lot of way to go, and to be honest, a little bit ahead of your years in some ways as well. But how has the management affected you, the different styles of management? How does that normally affect you from someone of your age? Does it tend to come down to the age? Have you noticed it with people, again, coming from hospitality? There's a lot of younger people in hospitality.
I think age and respect are two words which people think correlate with one another, but I don't think should. I think everyone should be treated with respect.
Yeah.
And then whatever your interaction with that fluctuates.
Yeah.
However, a lot of people will look at, if it's a young person within management, they'll have less respect, or they won't even suppose that they're in management.
Yeah.
Age should never really be a factor, however it is, and experience is a factor as well. I wouldn't put me and Ashley next to one another and say pick your better cleaner, because it's going to be Ash because she's got more experience.
Yeah.
But then I could have definitely cook a better meal than Ash. But yeah, age. I think they people definitely use age as a way to have your first interaction with someone.
Yeah.
So someone might look at me and think, oh, he's a young lad, I'll speak to him quite informally.
Yeah.
Build up a bit of banter with him. And that's all good and well, but it wouldn't work if I was their manager.
Yeah, yeah. But that's what I relate. That's what I mean though as well, is the fact of sometimes you have to go in and you almost have to. And I think that's where some people learn the negative style, the iron fist style of management is when they're into it quite young, they almost have to feel like they've got to demand that respect. And that's, I think that's a lot of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel it's harder for a younger person to earn respect compared to an older person who's going into it with the same experience. If you had a fresh canvas and these two people have applied for a job, don't use any job as an example, neither of them have got experience. One's 40, one's 20.
Yeah.
The 40-year-old will speak to them more formally than the 20-year-old.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be like that.
No.
But yeah, it's a tricky one. What do you think? When you're going to meet someone, or say if you were to do an interview with someone who was like my age or so,
yeah,
and then you had an interview with someone straight afterwards who are in their 50s, you're going to approach the interviews different. But you shouldn't really. Don't you think?
I would like to think that I don't approach the interviews differently. I mean, I have a very... I just call it strange, relaxed, whatever you want to call it, interview style, because I want to know the individual. I want to know their mindset. Now, whether or not I would ignore their age completely, I'd like to say I would, but I'd be lying.
Yeah.
I do relate quite a lot to, like I say, my experiences when I was younger, because that always stuck with me. I mean, to give you a situation, I had a scenario where I walked in with a colleague, and it was for a deal. They were looking for 15 log cabins, and they were all in excess of 100,000. So this was a £500,000 deal. I walked in. I had more experience. I had better knowledge, and I was the one that actually did the designs, the CAD drawings, and all the rest of it. That was me. But I walked in with a colleague who was older than me, quite significantly older than me. And instantly they walk round me to the older person, shake their hand, start, and it was like I wasn't even there. And then they start talking about the designs and this, that, and the other, and my colleague couldn't answer a word because that was me.
That was all your stuff.
That was all me. So those sorts of scenarios for me stick in my mind. So I try not to. However, you make a good point when you say it's about experience, and obviously at the moment there's quite often that age-old argument of you can't get the job before you've got the experience, but you can't get the experience before you've got the job. And that's 100% true. I mean, how do you combat that? The only way you combat that is by giving people a chance, creating roles, creating opportunities. Now, which probably brings us on quite nicely to the next section we were going to talk about. Even if you don't step someone up into that role, you have to create the opportunities for them to gain that experience. Yeah. Which we did recently for you here. Mm-hmm. Not by design, being honest, let's be fair.
Yeah, true.
But again, we gave you the opportunity and the respect to trust you to step in and see how you got on. So recently, and it was really bad timing because it was obviously when Ashley was very new to the role. But recently you stepped up into Ashley's shoes as contracts manager to oversee that for a couple of weeks while she was on annual leave, didn't you?
Yeah.
Which I think is good from an experience perspective, because if that was something you aspired to do, and I don't do any of your appraisals, Aaron, do I? So I don't. I
thought you'd done all of them, mate, to be honest.
What remotely, without you there, yeah. But you know, my guess is, it probably shouldn't be a guess, but my guess is that you have got quite high aspirations. You don't want to be a support operative all your life. You want to go up, whether it's here or somewhere else. As long as you're happy here, that's fine.
For life.
But, yeah. But I'm sure you want to do more. But by learning by having those opportunities, I think that helps you grow and helps you go ahead. But how did that feel when you when we suggested that to you? How did it feel?
I didn't have any issues with it. I was quite happy to do so because I was always joking around with Ash and saying she's got an easier and better job than me anyway. But no, I didn't have an issue with it. And then when we got into it and I was doing my job as well as Ash's job, there was a few parts where I was getting flustered because I just didn't have enough arms or legs.
Yeah.
However, that wouldn't be a normal week. Anyway, we had Sarah starting up, so I had to start Sarah up. We had someone who was being very unreliable with their shift times. Obviously, Ash was on annual leave. We were then also a support operative down. And then I think I hired for like 4 different sites as well.
Yeah, there was a lot going on.
So yeah, there was a lot going on, but I've got a different viewpoint of it from the contracts manager side point of view now. Don't realise how many random spanners can get chucked in. But no, I was quite looking forward to it, to be honest, when it was initially brought up for me doing it. And then doing it was fun as well, to be fair. I got to meet a lot more of the clients, got to meet a lot more of the not cleaners, but the hiring of the cleaners, and then learning the clients and seeing more staff. And rather than hearing it like a game of Chinese whispers where you're not actually sure what the issue is on site, just go straight to the client. What is your bugbears? And then you flat iron it out from there. Yeah. So that was good. It was good to get that experience and see everything like that from that part as well.
Did you find that kind of helped you sympathise with that sort of leader's perspective, or the way that Ashley leads, and maybe some, because obviously Ashley's your current manager, she's not been for very long. You've had one previously. So does that mean does it give you a bit of sympathy with the way other people have managed the situation and stuff like that?
Definitely got more sympathy for it, because I didn't realise how many spanners get chucked in, and also it gives me an understanding of why things are done that way.
Yeah.
Like looking at it from a financial point of view of, he's got to go up to Gloucester, but he's also got to go down to Taunton, and then he's also got a couple bits and bobs to do in Bristol. I'm not going to send him there to then go there, to then go there, to then go back there, to then go here.
Yeah.
You'd work it out and what would be the most sensible route.
Yeah.
And it's all about being sensible, because it's easy to look at it from an outsider's point of view and go, oh, well, I'd do that if I was in your shoes, but that wouldn't be the sensible choice.
Yeah. Well, it's quite easy to react as well, isn't it? I think that's the trouble, especially when you're dealing with, sort of multiple spinning plates, if you like. You react to the one that's got the biggest wobble. And if you don't take the time to plan the reaction, along with other factors, it can sometimes make it worse, can't it?
Yeah.
Unintentionally.
Yeah,
So,
majorly.
yeah.
Majorly. But no, it's quite a good experience being put in Ash's position. I got more respect now because I see it from her point of view, and also just learning more as it goes.
Yeah.
And there's no cap on how much you can learn.
So to summarise totally then, what in your opinion, what is the reason why leadership is so important?
Because everyone needs to have someone or an example to work off of.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that leadership role with someone in it, the rest of the boat might as well just not be in it either.
Yeah.
You need to have that person in that leadership role to set by example, but it's also to almost police the staff in a way, and ensuring that everything's being done practically.
Yeah.
So,
excellent.
How about yourself?
As I said earlier, for me, it is to make sure that you're going in the right direction. Things are running as smoothly as possible. There has to be someone to steer that ship and be accountable ultimately, because as we were saying, like you just said, you've got so many spanners that can be thrown in the works along the way. Someone has to be accountable for solving that solution, that problem, making sure it doesn't reoccur repeatedly, and just keep everything moving forward. There's not many people that come to work for the fun of it, and even if they are, it's not going to be very much fun if things are constantly going wrong.
Yeah.
So you have to have someone that's there to make sure that things don't constantly go wrong, or go wrong with as little as possible anyway. Brilliant. Well, Aaron, thank you very much for your time today. That's excellent. Thank you all for listening, watching. Hopefully you've learned something out of that. Please do drop us a comment. Let us know why you think leadership is so important, and if there's anything you want us to discuss going forward, then please do let us know. Click follow to pick up the future episodes. One every week, every Wednesday you can pick up the next episode. Thanks very much. See you again soon. Bye bye.